Hey, it's E.B. Moss, and this is an episode about the great outdoors. Yeah, well, we're talking about out of home, digital out of home, billboards, what we used to call them, back in the day when you would drive along and the roadside signs would point you to the diner, the pit stop thing. Well, things have evolved since then. So today I'm talking to David Krupp and Jaime Byrdak of Billups.
Hi.
Hi. Great to see you and great to speak with you. Thanks so much for joining me. I want to go behind the scenes, behind the boards. And both of you are really helping to revolutionize what is the real world scenario of out of home. And I think you're in a pretty good position these days. People are kind of loving the medium, right?
Yeah, I would say people are certainly more engaged than they used to be. And I think there's a general excitement around some of the things that out of home is able to do today that it really wasn't able to do years ago.
I feel as though there's just more conversations about this space, more excitement, I've seen this. Did you see this? Just discussion holistically that we've been hearing around within the industry and outside of the industry as well.
Agree. But we're going to get into, as I like to call it, the personal and the professional. So, David, you are the global CEO of Billups, and Jaime, you're the recently named CEO of North America. Congratulations.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you.
You guys have known each other for a second or two, right?
Yeah, Jaime and I have known each other now and worked together for 20 years, Jaime. At Starcom, we worked together on the Allstate account, and then at Kinetic at WPP, their out-of-home specialist that we started up in Chicago, and then we're there together for about 12 years. And then now, Jaime, what is it?
6 years at Billups, yes.
It's been a long-standing relationship.
Oh, that's so great. Now, speaking of Chicago, I promised you a little of the personal and the professional. Jaime, is it true that you were a ball girl for the White Sox?
Yes, it is very true. I grew up sitting on the sidelines and collecting foul balls when they came my way. So I played softball growing up, and it was just something that was a fun side job when I was in high school.
And if I were to look on eBay, would there be a lot of things that you've posted there?
No, actually not. I mean, at the end of the day, every time we received a ball, I chose a fan, handed it to it. That was actually the most nerve-wracking part, was giving him up to the fans, finding, a cute kid or somebody to, give a souvenir to. So, and then sometimes I would get booed if by accident I didn't see they were not wearing a Sox jersey and they were perhaps for the opposing team. So that was a little challenging.
Getting booed for your job, like being a high school kid and the fans booing.
Okay. Now, there's sort of a sports analogy, but a different sport. David, I've seen that you've written about Jason Kelce being your spirit animal, which cracks me up. Is that how you got to be like global CEO? Because you're like a great offensive lineman or something like that? Tell me about Jason.
I just think he is funny, approachable, engaging. I think he loves his fans. I think he loves the city. I mean, it seems like a great guy. I know nothing else about him. Well, other than he had an extraordinary career. How do I get to, or how did I get here? I sometimes look back and wonder. I think some of it's luck. I think some of it's, having a voice and being comfortable using it. I think some of it is taking some risks in the right moment. But I don't know if I would have plotted a career trajectory that brought me here. I always thought I was going to be a lawyer. So, I think there was just opportunities that came along, and I was always comfortable saying, I'll take a shot on that.
Well, it helps having a good team behind you.
I mean, talking about that 20-year relationship with Jaime, I tell her often, I couldn't do what I do if you didn't do what you do. Like, there is a really nice shorthand that we have. There is a trust that, she understands what I'm talking about. I hope I understand what she's talking about. and we're able to get things done very quickly. So that you find people throughout your career that mentor you, that you get to mentor, that you're just better because of them, and that to me really is this relationship.
I love that. And Jaime and I had a chance to get to know each other a little bit offline, and she was talking pretty frankly about her leadership style and loving the mentoring of her team. So I have a feeling it's a little bit of an apple tree from your inspiration. And we'll talk about leadership and styles a little bit more, hopefully, as time allows. But I want to go from the team and talk about games to game changing. See how I did that?
Well done.
Yeah. Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. I talk a lot about out of home, digital out of home. What are the terms that you use? Should we just call it OOH or do or?
I think we use out of home. I think to me it's interchangeable with outdoor, but I think the industry has sort of moved to this notion of out of home. And where consumers are, and then the media that can interact with it. I don't make much of a distinction between whether it's digital or programmatic or sort of classic or traditional formats. I think that is the industry. All of those participant pieces come together to make up the industry.
Okay.
So when I'm looking at posts or reading articles and they're talking specifically about digital out of home, or they're talking specifically about billboards, I think they're, depending on the topic, I think they're missing out on the greater, and we tend to focus on the greater.
And I think there's an element when we're working with our clients and, out of home is part of the brief. I think it's all of the above, that we look at. And that really is what stems is the starting point of your considerations. And then it's pared down to build it on the plain objective. So I would say, that's also very true in just how we're working with our day-to-day clients as well.
So I know that servicing clients is hugely important to Billups, and you've developed some really cool tech, but I like to take it from the treetops down. So Jaime, you are boots on the street. What's the response to out of home these days? Again, we're generically talking about whether it's digital, whether it's static, whether it's whatever, but in general, as a medium, what's the kind of response to it when you're suggesting that as an ad destination?
Generally, the response is positive, but I think that there are definitely, misconceptions in education that we really want to make sure that we're talking about with the out-of-home space. I think a lot of times people will look at it as an awareness driver, and it definitely is, but it can do so many other things. It can create opportunities for consideration. It can help drive sales. So it's really just talking about the fact that it's measurable, it's big, it's bold, it's beautiful. And also it really has a seat at the table as part of the overall strategy. I think, David and I often talk about that out of home is sometimes the first that's cut from a consideration set in an overall media mix, as it's a nice to have, but not necessarily a necessity. And I think the biggest thing for us is we're having those conversations. We're trying, as you said, to change the game, to make sure that it definitely has a seat at the table, and it's proven, and it's either as a standalone or it can be very complementary to all of your other media mix.
Got it. And David, are you leveraging a lot of the new technology as well?
From a creative standpoint, we certainly are, right? We've gotten into anamorphic. We're doing...
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I happen to love the word anamorphic, but will you explain what that means?
Yeah, fancy word for 3D, where technology is such that it actually feels like it's coming out side of the screen itself. And we are playing with that. We are playing with ad serving content, in real time situations. And then there's technology and measurement data that we've been really working to pioneer to understand the effectiveness of the media, to be able to report back to clients. What did that individual board do? What did the campaign do? What kind of traffic did it drive to a retail store, or offline to online engagement it created? Jamie's right. Out of home has always been viewed as this awareness-based media, and I think what we want to be able to show is the transaction that actually occurs because of it, and so that that level of engagement deeper than just, yes, I'm aware of the brand or I can picture it, but I actually took an action because of the billboard that I saw or the digital screen that I saw. That to us is really going to be the powerful step change I think that's going to come.
So Jaime, when you're in the office with a client, an agency, a brand, whatever it is, and you're pitching them on out of home, what are you leading with?
I think it takes a different approach each time because it's all about knowing our audience. Are they already in the space? Are they using it very minimally? Have they not dabbled at all? What is the education? So a lot of times we'll come in and just explain what out of home is, why out of home, what it does. I mean, the landscape is so different depending on what market you're in. Audiences move differently throughout the market depending on which ones we're talking about and what's relative to the client. And so I think a lot of it is just really showcasing what has been done in the space and start ideating with them. And I think that it's all about the storytelling. We always say it's the art and the science. So a lot of what we do is really just big, bold ideas, how we can bring their brands to life, how we can create something that doesn't exist. So yes, you can buy a billboard on the side of the road, but you can also build something that has not existed before and born out of an idea. We talk a lot about how if a client is utilizing other channels, digital, anything, how out of home can complement that. And we've got a lot of data points in our back pocket from research that we've done from our clients. So for example, we've done some sales studies that have showcased that, out of home had helped, increase sales for some packaged goods by 8%. Well, then you layer on a digital program on top of it or social, and we saw that increase another 4 to 8%. So we're talking about different things that really just provide the outcome, like strong outcomes is really what we're trying to showcase to the client and just get them overall excited about the channel.
I tend to tell clients, anybody can buy a billboard. I mean, that's probably the least of what we do. The question is, are you buying the right one in the right place at the right time for the right reasons against the right audience? And so it's funny, the thing that probably drives the majority of our revenue, the buying of it, I think that's at times the least interesting thing that we do. I think it's the data work that we're doing to help understand audiences better. I think it's the predictive modeling work that we're doing to try to understand category to category, how is out of home going to actually drive incrementality for clients. And I think it's that unique understanding of this billboard drove those actions. That to me is the exciting part of this space. The playing of it, long term, we hope to automate a lot of that because it should be automated. It's time consuming. We want our people spending as much time as possible really understanding the strategy and the requirements a client has and what are their goals and how can this media help impact it.
I want to go from the sort of state and value proposition of out of home itself to the value proposition of Billups. You had a pretty impressive year-end video I saw on Instagram. You've won some awards, you've expanded to new territories, but let's start with, again, staying in the room with the client or the prospect. What is Billups doing differently in terms of being an advisor, an ally in selling advertising and out of home?
Billups is about 22 years old. We were founded in Portland. Ben Billups, the founder, is still very, very actively involved in the company. He and his wife, Heather, had started the company really to buy media. Ben had a background in travel barters. I love when he tells the story because it's a weird confluence of categories coming together. And he ended up launching the company, called it Billups because I don't think he had a better name for it at the time, and it just sort of stuck. And he found that the space is interesting. Clients really needed a depth of resource and knowledge because you had to buy it locally, and there were so many suppliers that you needed to be able to contact or understand their inventories. So that's really how it started. And over time, I think Ben had a unique view, right? He thought ad tech was going to be important. He thought that measurement was going to be important and started to build around those areas when others weren't at the time. And so over the 22 years, we built out our own ad tech to support a single sign-on approach globally to all media inventory, something we don't think has been done anywhere else. There are other platforms that do workflow automation for the out-of-home space, but they tend to be focused specifically in a region or a country. We want all of our planners across the 20 countries that we're in to be able to access media wherever they need that media to be. It doesn't mean that they'll do all the planning. They may tap into our US team in order to help them, but we want to be able to transact globally because it really is a global media and requires that kind of depth of resource. And from a measurement standpoint, I think today we sit on 9 patents that we've gotten granted around the measurement of
9 patents?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've patented our approaches and methodologies to how we measure, and we've created then derivative work off of that to create products and service additions to how we go to market, pre-planning all the way to measurement. So, it's really 3 areas of focus, planning and buying or the managed services, the ad tech, and then the research and data science. So that, I think, is our differentiation. We bring it all together under one banner, under one roof, with an approach that is aligned globally, with technology that is aligned globally, and with research that is, again, available and aligned globally.
And to use Jamie's word, storytelling, you're inspiring them to think creatively, but Billups doesn't actually do the creative. Is that correct?
That's correct. Although, we've been around the block enough to know you may want to bump up your font size. And we've actually, again, created a product around that. We've got a creative optimization tool that will take a look at a client's creative and situation and help them understand, is this going to stand out? Or are there adjustments that you may want to make? So no, we don't do the creative, but yes, creative is such a vital portion of this, given the size of the canvas that clients are going to be able to paint on. We want to make sure that it's the best creative to withstand whatever the consumer vision of it is going to be.
Jaime, paint me a picture. I know that you have led some campaigns for big brands. Can you walk us through one that really shows off how out of home has evolved, or where you applied technology and strategic recommendations to have a real proud moment?
Yeah, and it's interesting enough, Allstate, as David mentioned, is where we met. And we were on the national sports and sponsorship desks. David was my boss. I'm trying to remember, we touched many other pieces of... Yes, we touched many of the pieces of the business. And actually, David, I was thinking about that when this came up, is we were part of a group, or at least I was very junior in the role, but that created the Good Hands Nets. And I feel like, that still exists today during college football games. That's something, I think that was actually really my first exposure to out of home, because we were on, a strategy and planning desk at the time. So every time I see that, I always make sure to give a plug to the family to share that. But I think in terms of just something that we're really proud of, and just the data infusing, in general, we'll get a lot of questions from our clients and a lot of briefs that'll say that they want to target a point of interest. They want to surround certain stores and locations to help honestly drive foot traffic in the door. And so I think we've done a lot of work on the evolution of how we look at that. So in the past, we would just look at a radius, like 5 miles. Well, you draw a pin and draw a circle around it, and you look for any units within a 5 mile parameter. But we all know that audiences move throughout the market differently. So as David was talking a lot about the technology, we're able to work really closely with our sciences team and build out custom audiences that have certain criteria that would have them walk through a door to help move the product. And, they're more of this target audience per se. And so I think the biggest thing is just really evolving the strategies that we're doing in terms of how we're approaching the market, how we're utilizing audiences, how we're understanding how we're moving, and how it's helping inform the selections and helping us index the inventory to see what is the strongest that would pop to the top to make a really sound activation within the market, and then prove it with research and studies. So I feel like we've definitely have seen an uptick in the research from a footfall perspective. So how many folks walk through the door that have been exposed to an out-of-home advertisement, meaning they come within close proximity that it's viewable to them, and then how many have then taken an action because of that.
But I would finish your thought too, like that client, we've got a lot of them, where we've challenged them on that trade radius idea. 5 miles in Tuscaloosa, Alabama is really different than 5 miles in Manhattan, right? You're out into the boroughs. So challenging them and showing them the data that's going to support, hey, we really need a 35-minute commute time because people are willing to go that far, or we need to get this down to block level, not to mile level. That changes the strategy entirely. Is it game changing? I think it's an evolution. I think it's just a smarter use of data to better understand consumers in a way that we then find the intersection points that clients need in order to drive whatever the outcome is that they're looking for. So, I think there are probably dozens of those that we can talk about. We had one where we were doing in-flight reporting and then post-campaign reporting, and we were seeing one of the markets not doing well. And it turns out that we were actually informing the clients that the market isn't doing well. They had an issue with Walmart distribution where the trucks weren't getting there on time. And we were calling it out, not directly, but indirectly, saying, hey, we're seeing something anomalous here. And lo and behold, it turns out, they've got distribution issues that were causing it. So, it's kind of fascinating to see how far the data that we're using around media buying and planning can actually go into a much more interesting place within the client's, business.
So you're also really acting as consiglieres.
At times, yeah, certainly at times.
How do you support different KPIs? Certainly we talked about geography and, whether it's changing a font and you have input in things like that. But if someone wanted to drive foot traffic or drive to their site or what have you, how are you addressing things like that when they have different KPIs?
Broadly today, I think we look at footfall against retail locations. We look at offline to online metrics. So again, did a consumer go buy a billboard and then go onto the website, or did they download an app and take a digital action because of it? It's really the entire planning approach. Jaime talked about custom indexing. We look at every out-of-home unit in the U.S. and apply sort of a rank order then by individual unit of which one is going to best target against the outcomes that the client has against the audience that the client is looking to support or achieve. And then we follow those locations after we've purchased them through to the measurement of them, right? Did it drive an action? And for us, the important part, I think, is that we're able to then start optimizing campaigns for the future, both digital and static, programmatic, right? So we're able to look at what was the performance down to a campaign level and then down to an individual board level. And that's going to help change strategies over time or selection criteria over time. Are we over delivering actually to an audience? Because we'll get a recap of the types of audiences that were received or achieved. And so we can then go back to clients and say, you wanted adults 21 plus, and we purchased that, but we also saw that these ones that were in Hispanic areas or these ones that were more suburban tended to do better. Let's more of those for the future. And it starts to change the trajectory of that audience selection.
Okay.
So clients bring us the KPIs, we'll figure out a solution for it. And if we don't have one that's sort of standard today, we'll look to try to develop it.
I just got back from CES. A lot of us were there. There was a nice presence for out of home as well. But honestly, you couldn't swing a cat without hitting someone talking about AI, especially agentic AI. How is that impacting either life at Billups or the out of home space itself?
I, first of all, like to see what swinging a cat looks like. We've got something that we build called the recommendation engine. How is it going to change things for us? Over time, as we've built out our Billups planning tool, that recommendation today sits outside of it. Eventually, it'll live inside of it. I think that what we're going to see is that AI helps create efficiency in our workflow. and it helps answer a lot of the sort of broad questions about a campaign opportunity. It'll do the planning work. It will recommend locations. It will talk to us about where we could optimize based on the campaigns we've run before. But I also think it is a tool within a toolbox. I'm not yet at the point where I think we can automate absolutely everything across our business, because so much of this is about what is happening in the real time in a marketplace. I mean, you look at what's going on in LA today, and it's heartbreaking. And yet at the same time, we're thinking about it from a business perspective. What does this mean to consumer movement? Are our boards still posted? Are the structures still viable? The AI today probably wouldn't be able to make any recommendation based on what is happening today. So we need human intelligence combined with automated intelligence, I think, to come out to what will be the best outcomes. But for our team, what I hope it means is that they're going to have more time thinking about client strategies than they are thinking about, I got to get this board contracted before, I close up to go away for the weekend. I think that's going to be a very powerful thing that clients will see, is just more thinking on their business and more opportunity to drive those client goals.
That is a sobering example that you really provided. Yeah, but an important one as well. Jaime, I'm giving Billups a lot of props. There's a lot of great technology. Clearly, you guys, as I said, are welcomed strategic advisors. You're also independent. I think you're like the biggest independent out-of-home agency. Do you think that is an asset? Do people listen when you're trying to push the agency forward?
Definitely. I think that's something that we make sure that we talk about, especially when we're meeting with new clients outside of just our scale, is that we are independent. And what that means for us, that we can invest, and we have a lot of different things in-house that really help guide our decisioning, but that we're also a single channel expert. And I think that really helps the conversation. So we can lead anything from an out-of-home campaign from end to end, right? So in terms of ideating and building a sound strategy, how we go to market, how do we look at investment strategies as well? We've got an engineering team that really has helped develop a platform that is accessible to us, and a data science team. And what's unique about all of these teams is that they know out-of-home as well too. Our chief data scientist, he's building things specifically for the out-of-home channel. And so that really bodes well. And there's just resources that we have access to that, in the past, when I worked for a holding company, I did not. So I feel like that's really beneficial and helpful when we are sitting in the room with our clients to really articulate what our key point of difference is there.
Yeah. The word that we used to use a lot a couple of years back was nimble, but it sounds like you really embody that.
Nimble, we're flexible, we are insertable. We can be part of an interagency team. We can be standalone out-of-home AOR. We can work directly with clients. We can work with agencies. So I think there's also just flexibility in all that we do as well too.
I love my cliches. So along with swinging a cat, I'll say that the proof is in the pudding. Sorry. No. But you guys have grown like 20 countries in 20 years or something. In that video that I mentioned earlier, you've won some awards. What do you want to brag on, David?
Our best year ever was last year, and we actually look to have a better year coming up ahead. I mean, we were an Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies recipient after 20 some years in the business. What do we really want to brag on? For me, it really comes down to the people. It's been amazing to see the internal promotions that we've made this year, the next generation of leadership coming. We get feedback from our clients, but when it starts to get down to individual people and the impact that they've made on their business, that's extraordinary to us. Yeah. When the Dodgers won the World Series,
sports again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sports here, huh?
And Wieden & Kennedy on the takeover of the Hollywood sign, right? So we had lit up the D and turned off the rest of the Hollywood sign. Never been done before. Something totally unique and totally ownable by Nike. Lit it up in that Dodger blue. That to me gives me chills. It's great stuff.
Oh, I love that example. Yes, because that's so memorable. Part of growth of any company is, as you said, it's people. It's also its mission. And something that I like to talk about in every episode possible is brand purpose, corporate social responsibility, business opportunity. You know, it's still a young company and growing quickly, but what's its DNA in terms of mission, what you get behind either individually or as a company?
We get behind, I think, probably at times more than we should. We get a lot of requests for, can you help us out with some out-of-home?
Like pro bono?
Pro bono, yeah. To support children's efforts, anti-trafficking, human rights. One of our clients is AIDS Healthcare Foundation. They have been at the forefront of trying to combat sexually transmitted diseases. It is an honor and a privilege to work with them. And it's also fun because their messaging is always very provocative, and they are challenging people to sort of wake up and see that, there's danger out there and to take precautions. So we get behind a lot of things. We donate to some of the causes that our clients do, and are proud to support them in their efforts. We give everybody at the company days off to go do community service. We hope that they're going to be able to do it as a team together. But even if they want to do it individually, we want to give people time enough so that they can, be part of the communities that they're advertising in. We want to be a company that gives back, but I think more than that, we want to be a company that recognizes that it's not just about coming in and doing the job every day or doing it from home, wherever you are, but it's also about this should lead to bigger relationships. This should lead to bigger things.
So Jaime, give me an example of your personal brand and what you prefer as your style of leadership and mentoring.
I would say, and I'm looking at David smiling, hopefully I'm representing the way that I think about myself, but I feel like I'm a very, hands-on and empathetic leader in terms of I want to help guide my team, letting them have an opportunity, to get in front of a client, to present in front of a team. I think just toggling onto some of the answers that David gave about what we're most proud of, I couldn't echo it more about the team. And I think what's amazing to see is everything that they have brought to the forefront with our clients, and it's all rooted in the relationships that they have built. I love when I'm able to come in and they're actually creating an introduction from me to the client, and I get all the positive accolades and just how strong and wonderful the relationship is. And so I have a file of emails, and it's like blowing up from the amount of just props that the team has gotten over the course of the year. And I just couldn't be more proud. And so what I think is that it's really just giving them confidence, saying, you know what, I like this. This is great. Let's continue here. What else do we want to pull out of this? And then also maybe what are a couple of things that we can change and how can we do that? And giving them a voice, essentially, I think as well is something that I think is truly important. And again, yes, I've learned so much from David. And I think just to echo in the very beginning, the reason I have worked with him for so long is every single time I'm in the room with him, I'm always learning something new. And so I feel like that's something that I also want to make sure from my team is that they feel like they're constantly learning from me as well, and that I'm helping guide them in their career from an out-of-home perspective, how we're approaching pitches, planning for our clients, relationships, just all of the above.
Jaime, I'm going to give you the last word, but two things. What do you hope for Billups in 2025? And what do you hope for the entire out-of-home industry coming up this year?
For Billups specifically, momentum. I think that is the last word. What I'm hoping is, as David mentioned, we've had a great year. We have great relationships. We have a great team. I want to take that and continue to build momentum. And I guess it can apply to the industry as well. We want to see out-of-home grow. We want to see it as a greater share of the media mix. It's been kind of stagnant at that 4 to 5% for quite some time. So I think if we can continue to move the needle there, I would say that would be my hope for the industry as well.
Perfect. David Krupp, Jaime Byrdak, the chieftains of Billups, the biggest independent out-of-home agency out there. You guys are awesome, and I can see why you've had such a fantastic year. Thank you so much for joining. Well, I hope you got some good insider scoop from this episode of Insider Interviews with me, E.B. Moss. If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/mossappeal. If I can help you with your company's podcast, please find me at mossappeal.com. And I hope you'll follow Insider Interviews on social media and let me know if you have a question or a suggestion for a next stellar guest in media, marketing, and advertising. Speaking of stellar, my theme music was composed and performed by the incomparable Grammy-winning John Clayton. Thanks again for listening.